Okay, so you know how we're always talking about those weird little health clues our bodies give us?
Mm-hmm.
Well, get this. This time, it's all about our feet, like literally our feet.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
So I was checking out this YouTube video by Dr. Eric Berg. He's a chiropractor, and he's talking about how the way our feet look can actually point to problems with our liver.
Wow. Okay, that sounds a little out there, but I'm definitely curious.
Right. Like, it's one thing to say your skin gets yellow if your liver's in trouble, but your feet.
Yeah. What's the connection there?
Well, he emphasizes right up front, none of this is a substitute for, going to an actual doctor.
Right, of course. Always good to get a professional opinion.
Totally. But it is interesting stuff, even just for informational purposes.
For sure. So what kind of foot stuff are we talking about?
Okay, so first up, he talks about these tiny red or brown dots you might see on your lower legs, or even like a shiny appearance to the skin.
Ah,
And apparently, that can be an early sign of poor circulation.
okay. Yeah. But how does that tie back to the liver?
Well, think about it. Your feet are like the furthest point from your heart in your whole circulatory system.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
So it's kind of like if there is a blockage or a slowdown in the flow upstream.
Ah, the effects are going to be more obvious downstream. Interesting.
Exactly. And if your liver's not doing its job right, it can totally mess with your blood flow.
So those little dots on your feet might be the canary in the coal mine, so to speak.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's not just the dots. He also mentions spider veins, those little web-like clusters of red or blue veins.
Yeah.
He says those can sometimes point to a more serious liver condition called cirrhosis.
Now that's interesting.
Right. I didn't know there was a link there at all.
Me neither, really.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Apparently, it all comes down to hormones. Cirrhosis messes with how your body processes estrogen,
Ah,
and that imbalance can actually trigger those spider veins to pop up.
so it's like a chain reaction starting from the liver.
Wow.
Wild.
Yeah. And there's more. Get this, cracked heels.
Cracked heels, like dry skin cracked heels.
Yep, those ones. Could be the sign of something funky going on with your liver.
Really?
Yeah.
Now that's unexpected.
Right. I always thought it was just like dry weather or wearing bad shoes.
Me too.
Hmm.
So what's the connection there then?
Well, he explains that cracked heels can sometimes signal a deficiency in B vitamins or those omega-3 fatty acids.
Okay.
And while the liver itself doesn't make those nutrients,
Right.
it does play a big role in absorbing them from, like, your food and stuff. You know how it produces bile?
Yeah, for digestion.
Exactly. Well, bile is also crucial for breaking down fats, and that's what lets those B vitamins and omega-3s get absorbed properly.
Gotcha. So if your liver's not functioning at its best, it can actually affect how well you absorb those important nutrients.
Yep. And that could lead to, you guessed it, cracked heels.
Wow. It's amazing how everything is connected in the body. You really don't think about it, do you?
I know, right? Like, who knew cracked heels could be a sign of something deeper going on? It makes you wonder what other little symptoms we might be ignoring.
Absolutely. Our bodies are full of surprises.
For sure. And speaking of symptoms, Dr. Berg also pointed out that swelling in your feet, especially around the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
could be another sign of a liver that's struggling.
Makes sense. If the liver's all congested and stuff, it can cause fluid buildup.
Right. And since our feet are like the lowest point in our bodies, that's where the fluid tends to collect.
Right. It's all about gravity, isn't it?
Pretty much. And he mentions that you might even get itching, pain, or inflammation down there too.
Oof, that doesn't sound fun.
Not at all. And this kind of swelling is often called pitting edema, which means if you press your finger into the swollen area,
Oh, I've heard of that.
it leaves a little dent.
Crazy. Right.
Yeah, it's like your body's trying to get your attention, saying, hey, something's wrong here.
Totally. It's like a little distress signal from your feet. Exactly. It's a reminder to pay attention to those subtle signs and figure out what they might be telling us.
Okay, so we've covered those tiny dots, spider veins, cracked heels, and swelling. What else does he talk about? Are there any other foot clues that could be related to liver health?
Well, he does mention things like hot feet and even foot odor.
Foot odor, really?
Yeah. Now, of course, those can be caused by a bunch of different things.
Right, like sweaty feet or wearing the same shoes too often.
Exactly. But in the context of the liver, it all comes back to detoxification.
Detoxification.
Yeah, the liver's main job is to filter out toxins from your blood.
Right, right.
So if the liver isn't doing that effectively,
You can't keep up with all the junk.
exactly,
Right.
then your body might try to eliminate those toxins in other ways, like through sweating.
And that could explain the hot feet and the stinky feet. Interesting.
Exactly. It's like your body is saying, hey, I need some help getting rid of this stuff.
So our feet are like a backup detox system? That's wild.
In a way, yeah. It really highlights how interconnected all our body systems are.
Okay, this next one kind of freaked me out a little. He talks about liver problems being connected to things like toenail fungus.
Toenail fungus. How does that work?
Right. It seems so random.
Yeah, what's the link there?
Well, apparently it's all tied to the gut microbiome.
The gut microbiome. You mean all those trillions of bacteria living in our intestine?
Yep, that's the one. And it turns out a healthy liver is super important for keeping that gut microbiome in balance.
So, are you saying there's a connection between the liver and the gut?
Absolutely. They're like best buddies working together behind the scenes.
Huh. I never really thought about it that way.
Well, here's the thing. If the liver isn't working right, it can mess up the balance of good and bad bacteria in the gut.
Okay, so what does that have to do with toenail fungus?
Well, when that balance gets thrown off, it can lead to an overgrowth of certain types of fungi.
Ah, and that can lead to fungal infections.
Bingo. Including, yep, toenail fungus.
Wow, it's like a domino effect. One thing leads to another, and eventually it shows up in the most unexpected places.
Exactly. It really emphasizes the importance of addressing the root cause of health issues.
For sure. It's not just about treating the symptoms, but understanding the whole picture.
Okay, one more thing about nails. Dr. Berg mentions that if your nail beds are white, like if you've lost that little half moon shape at the base, the lunula,
Huh.
that could be another sign of poor circulation, which, again, we know can be linked back to the liver.
That's interesting. So it's another little piece of the puzzle that could give us clues about our liver health.
Right. It's crazy how much information our bodies are constantly giving us if we just know how to look for it.
It's like our bodies are speaking to us in a secret language, and we just need to learn how to decipher it.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about all these different foot clues that might signal liver problems, but what actually causes these liver problems in the first place? Is it just what we eat and drink?
Well, it's certainly not just diet, although that does play a big role.
Right. So what else is there?
Well, medications can have a huge impact on the liver. Many medications are actually processed through the liver.
Oh, yeah, you always hear about those liver-related side effects.
Exactly. And some of those medications can damage the liver over time or just put a lot of strain on it.
So it's not just about what we're putting into our bodies, but also what medications we're taking.
Right. It's all interconnected.
Okay, so what about the things we are putting into our bodies? Dr. Berg seems pretty passionate about the dangers of sugar, especially high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, he's not alone there. A lot of health experts warn about that.
So what's so bad about sugar when it comes to the liver?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
The liver works hard to process everything we eat and drink.
Right.
And sugar, especially those refined sugars like high fructose corn syrup, they're a real challenge for the liver to process.
Oh, I see. So too much sugar can overload the liver.
Exactly. It's like pushing it to its limits. And if we do that too often, over time, it can lead to damage and dysfunction.
So it's not just about, avoiding candy bars and soda. We also have to watch out for the hidden sugars in processed foods.
Absolutely. Those sneaky sugars are everywhere, and they add up quickly. It's a big reason why focusing on whole, unprocessed foods is so crucial for liver health.
Makes sense. So sugar is a big one. What else does Dr. Berg highlight?
Well, he also talks about how modern diets are often lacking in fresh, raw ingredients, and that can be a problem too.
Oh, yeah, like all those canned and processed foods.
Exactly. And, our bodies really thrive on whole, nutrient-dense foods that are packed with enzymes and vitamins and minerals.
Right. So what does that have to do with the liver?
Well, all those nutrients actually support the liver's natural detoxification processes and help it function at its best.
Ah, so it's like giving the liver the tools it needs to do its job.
Exactly. But when we rely too much on processed foods, which are often stripped of those vital nutrients,
The liver misses out on that support.
exactly. It's like running your car on low-grade fuel. It might work for a while, but eventually it's going to cause problems.
That's a great analogy. So sugar overload, processed foods, what else should we be thinking about?
Well, on the flip side, Dr. Berg is a big advocate for eating plenty of vegetables.
Veggies. Good for the liver.
Absolutely.
Yep.
They're nutritional powerhouses. They provide tons of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and fiber, all of which support the liver.
So it's not just about cutting out the bad stuff. It's also about making sure we're getting enough of the good stuff.
You got it. It's all about balance, creating a dietary pattern that gives your liver what it needs to thrive.
So if you combine a junk food diet with not enough veggies,
That's definitely not doing your liver any favors.
that's for sure. Okay, what about alcohol? We all know excessive drinking can wreak havoc on the liver, right?
Yes, that's a well-known one.
But what about moderate drinking? Is there, like, a safe limit?
That's a question best left for your doctor. They can take into account your individual health history and everything.
That makes sense. So better to be safe than sorry, right?
Exactly. But in general, it's wise to be mindful of your alcohol intake. Remember, even though it's legal and socially acceptable, alcohol is still a toxin that the liver has to work hard to process.
Okay, I'll drink to that. Pun intended, of course.
But seriously, even moderate drinking can contribute to liver strain over time.
Good to know. And this is another thing that surprised me. He actually mentions that even too much protein can be hard on the liver.
It's true. We always hear about protein being so important for building muscle and all that.
Right. So how can protein be a bad thing?
Well, it's all about balance. As with most things in life, protein is essential. But when we eat way more than our bodies need, it can actually create extra work for the liver.
Really? Explain that one to me.
Okay, so the liver plays a key role in metabolizing protein, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we overload our system with more protein than we can use,
What happens?
it creates a byproduct called nitrogen waste, which the liver then has to filter out.
Ah, I see. So too much protein equals more work for the liver.
Exactly. And if there's already some liver damage or if we're constantly overloading it with protein,
It can make things worse.
right, it just adds to the strain.
So it really is all about balance, right? Too much of anything, even something healthy, can throw our bodies off.
You nailed it. Balance is key when it comes to overall health, and that definitely includes our liver health.
So it sounds like making smart choices about what we eat and drink is crucial for supporting our liver.
Absolutely. And those choices don't have to be drastic or complicated. Just being mindful of what we're putting into our bodies can make a big difference.
Okay, so we know what not to do, but what does Dr. Berg recommend for supporting liver health? Does he have any specific dietary advice?
Well, he's a big proponent of the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting. He believes those approaches can really help improve liver function and reduce inflammation.
Keto and intermittent fasting, huh? Those are pretty popular these days.
They are, and they can definitely be beneficial for some people. But,
But there's always a but.
well, it's important to remember that every individual is different. What works for one person might not work for another.
Makes sense. So what do you think? Are those approaches right for everyone?
I wouldn't say so, no. And there are potential downsides to consider, especially for people with certain health conditions or who are taking medications.
Right, like you might need to adjust things based on your specific situation.
Exactly. And that's why before making any big dietary changes, it's always a good idea to talk to your doctor.
Or a registered dietitian.
Right. They can help you figure out if a specific diet is right for you and how to do it safely.
Always good to get professional guidance when it comes to our health.
Absolutely. It's about finding what works best for you and your unique needs.
So we've talked about all these potential foot clues that might be hinting at liver issues.
It's pretty amazing how much our feet can reveal about our overall health.
It really is. But before we go any further, it's super important to remember.
We're not doctors.
Exactly. This whole deep dive is just for informational purposes.
It's not a substitute for professional medical advice.
So if you're experiencing any of these foot symptoms,
And you're concerned about your liver,
definitely talk to your doctor.
they can do the proper tests and give you personalized advice.
So it's more about awareness than alarm, right?
Exactly. It's about understanding that our bodies are constantly communicating with us.
And sometimes we just need to learn how to listen.
And our feet might just be trying to tell us something important.
Okay, so let's say someone is concerned about their liver health. What are some practical things they can do to support their liver, like while they're waiting for that doctor's appointment?
That's a great question. And it brings us right back to the importance of diet and lifestyle choices. We talked about how sugar overload and processed foods can put a strain on the liver.
Right.
So it makes sense that reducing those things would be a good place to start.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So ditch the soda, cut back on the chips. Got it. What else?
Well, focusing on whole, unprocessed foods is key. Think fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, healthy fats.
Ah, all the good stuff.
Exactly. These foods provide the nutrients your liver needs to function properly.
Okay, what about hydration? Is that important for the liver too?
Definitely. Drinking plenty of water helps flush out toxins and supports those natural detoxification processes we talked about.
So it's all about giving the liver the tools it needs to do its job while minimizing the things that make its job harder.
Exactly. It's not about deprivation or crazy diets, but just making sustainable changes that nourish your body and support your overall well-being.
And remember, supporting your liver isn't just about what you eat and drink.
You're right, it's bigger than that. Other lifestyle factors play a role too.
Like what?
Well, things like getting regular exercise, managing stress levels, and limiting alcohol consumption are all super important for maintaining a healthy liver.
So it's a holistic approach, taking care of your whole self, mind, and body.
Exactly. Everything is interconnected. When you prioritize your overall well-being, it benefits all your organs, including your liver.
I love that. It's not just about treating symptoms, it's about cultivating a lifestyle that promotes wellness from the inside out.
And that's where true health and vitality come from. It's a lifelong journey, not a quick fix.
Speaking of journeys, we've talked a lot about how our feet can give us clues about our liver health, but I'm wondering, what other messages might our bodies be sending us?
That's a great question. It really encourages us to pay attention and tune in.
Right, like what other signs might we be missing?
Exactly. It could be anything from changes in energy levels
To digestive issues.
to skin problems.
You name it.
The key is to pay attention to those subtle shifts and think about what they might be telling us about our overall health.
It's like we're all detectives trying to solve the mystery of our own bodies.
And the more we understand how our bodies work, the better equipped we are to make healthy choices.
Choices that can prevent problems down the road.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and taking charge of our health destiny.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive so far. We've explored this wild connection between foot symptoms and liver health.
And we talked about what can cause liver problems in the first place.
Right, and how to support liver function through diet and lifestyle choices.
And don't forget, we've emphasized throughout this whole discussion.
That it's super important to get professional medical advice for any health concerns.
Absolutely. This information is just a starting point, not a replacement for proper medical care.
Right, it's all about working with your doctor to make informed decisions about your health.
Exactly. It's a partnership, not a solo mission.
So before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder. We've talked about how our bodies, especially our feet, can give us clues about our liver health.
But what other messages might your body be sending you?
What subtle signs are you overlooking?
What small changes could you make in your daily life to support your overall well-being?
It's all about listening to your body and taking action. Because when you do that,
You empower yourself to live a healthier, happier life.
absolutely. So until next time, keep exploring those amazing ways your body communicates with you.
And keep those livers healthy.
So we've been talking about all these fascinating connections between how our feet look and the health of our liver.
It's pretty wild, right? Like, who knew our feet could be such a telltale sign?
I know, it really makes you think twice about those little aches and pains we tend to ignore.
Exactly. But before we go any further, it's super important to remember,
That we're not doctors.
right, this deep dive is just for informational purposes. It's not medical advice.
So if you're really concerned about your liver health or if you notice any of the symptoms we've been talking about,
Definitely talk to your doctor.
they can run the right tests and get you personalized guidance.
Exactly. Don't just rely on what you hear on the internet, no matter how interesting it might be.
For sure. So it's more about awareness than like freaking out, right?
Exactly. It's about understanding that our bodies are always communicating with us.
And sometimes those messages are a little subtle.
Like secret code we need to crack.
Totally. So let's say someone is concerned about their liver health. What are some things they can do to, support their liver, like even while they're waiting for that doctor's appointment?
That's a great question. And, it all comes back to those diet and lifestyle choices we were discussing earlier.
Right, like cutting back on the sugar and processed foods.
Exactly. Those are definitely steps in the right direction.
Okay, so ditch the soda, swap the chips for some veggies. Got it. Anything else?
Well, focusing on whole, unprocessed foods is key. Fruits, veggies, lean protein, healthy fats.
All the good stuff.
Exactly. Giving your body the nutrients it needs to thrive.
And what about staying hydrated? Is that important for liver health too?
Absolutely. Drinking plenty of water helps flush out toxins and supports the liver's natural detoxification processes.
So it's kind of like giving your liver a nice internal shower.
Yeah, you could say that. It's about creating an environment where your liver can function optimally.
Makes sense. So we're minimizing the things that stress the liver out and at the same time giving it the tools it needs to do its job.
You got it. And remember, It's not about deprivation or crazy diets. It's about making sustainable changes that you can stick with long term.
Right. It's about creating healthy habits, not just quick fixes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of healthy habits, supporting your liver isn't just about what you eat and drink.
Oh, right. You mentioned other lifestyle factors earlier.
Yeah, things like getting regular exercise, managing stress, and limiting alcohol consumption are all crucial for liver health.
So it's a whole body approach, taking care of yourself on all levels.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that everything is interconnected. When you prioritize your overall well-being, it benefits all your organs, including your liver.
I love that. It's not just about treating symptoms, it's about cultivating a lifestyle that promotes wellness from the inside out.
And that's where true health and vitality come from. It's a journey, not a destination.
Speaking of journeys, we've been focusing on how our feet can reveal a lot about our liver health.
Right, those little clues our bodies give us.
But I'm curious, what other messages might our bodies be sending us? Are there other signs we might be overlooking?
That's a fantastic question. And it really encourages us to tune in and listen to what our bodies are trying to tell us.
Right. Like what other subtle hints might we be missing?
Exactly. It could be anything from changes in energy levels
To digestive
to
issues?
skin problems, you name it.
Wow, it's kind of overwhelming when you think about it.
It can be, yeah. But instead of getting overwhelmed, try to see it as an opportunity to learn and grow.
Right, like a chance to become more in tune with our bodies.
Exactly. The key is to pay attention to those subtle shifts and consider what they might be telling us about our overall
It's
health.
like we're all detectives trying to piece together the clues our bodies are giving us.
And the more we learn, the better equipped we are to make healthy choices and prevent problems down the road.
So we've talked a lot about this connection between foot symptoms and liver health.
And we've explored some of the things that can cause liver problems.
Right, as well as some ways to support liver function through diet and lifestyle changes.
And throughout it all, we've emphasized the importance of seeking professional medical advice for any health concerns.
Absolutely. This information is meant to empower and inform, not replace the guidance of a qualified healthcare professional.
Right. It's about working in partnership with your doctor to address any underlying health issues and make the best decisions for your care.
Okay, so before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We've talked about how our bodies, especially our feet, can give us clues about our liver health.
But what other messages might your body be sending you?
What subtle signs are you overlooking?
What small changes could you make in your daily life to support your overall well-being?
It's like we have this owner's manual built right into our bodies, but we just never bother to read it.
That's such a great way to put it. And this deep dive, it's like we're finally cracking open that manual and starting to understand the language our body speaks.
Exactly. And the more we understand those signals, the better we can take care of ourselves.
Right. It's not just about having the knowledge. It's about putting that knowledge into action.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap. We started this whole thing by exploring this crazy connection between how our feet look and the health of our liver.
Right. Like, who knew our feet could tell us so much?
We talked about how things like those tiny red dots, spider veins, cracked heels, even swelling could actually be signs that our liver's not happy.
And then we dug into some of the reasons why our livers might be struggling.
Yeah, all those things we gotta watch out for. Medications, too much sugar, processed foods, even too much alcohol or protein.
And we make sure to emphasize throughout this whole discussion.
That we're not doctors.
Right. This is just for informational purposes. It's not a replacement for actual medical advice.
So if you have any concerns about your liver health, or if you notice any of those foot symptoms we talked about,
Please talk to your doctor.
they're the experts. They can figure out what's really going on and give you personalized guidance.
Exactly. We're all about empowering you with information, but ultimately your health is in your hands.
So before we say goodbye, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge. Knowing what you know now about your amazing communicative body.
What's one small step you can take today to show your liver some love?
Could it be choosing a big salad over those greasy fries?
Or maybe swapping that sugary soda for a glass of water?
Or maybe it's finally making time for that walk you've been putting off.
Whatever it is, remember, even small changes can make a big difference over time. It's all about those little steps day after day that add up to a healthier you.
So true. And as always, keep listening to your body. It's got a lot to say.
And we'll be back next time with another fascinating deep dive into the world of health and wellness.
Until then, stay curious, stay healthy, and keep those feet happy.